Okay, so are you ready to fire up the time machine? Because today we are going way back to the year 2001.
Oh man, 2001.
Yeah,
I had like, what was I rocking back then? I think I had like the frosted tips going on.
we're talking low-rise jeans, the dot-com bubble bursting. It was a wild time. But for us gamers, 2001 was the dawn of a new millennium in gaming. And our guide to this blast from the past,
What else?
a copy of GamePro Magazine, July 2001 issue.
Nice.
This wasn't just a magazine, my friend. This was our Google, our Wikipedia, our Reddit, all rolled into one glorious, glossy package.
You know what I love about this era? It wasn't just about the games themselves. We were on the cusp of some really big things, but there was this palpable sense of uncertainty, you know?
Oh, totally. This issue is packed with industry shakeups, bold predictions about the future of gaming, and let me tell you, some of them are way off base. But that's what makes it so fascinating to look back on,
Well,
right?
absolutely. It's like a time capsule.
Okay, so picture this. 2001, the dot-com bubble just burst, but everyone's geeking out over the PS2 and the brand new Xbox.
Yeah, the console wars were heating up.
Big time. And online gaming. Forget about it. Well, not really. It was definitely a hot topic. This issue even has a reader letter, someone questioning why they'd even bother with online game downloads when, like, most people didn't even have broadband.
Oh, yeah, that was a major pain point back then. It's easy to forget, but getting online was a whole thing.
Dial up anyone. The screeching modems, waiting forever for pages to load, downloading a game felt like a fantasy. It really highlights the digital divide of the time, right?
Big time. High costs, limited access. The things we take for granted now were major roadblocks back then.
It's crazy to think those early online gaming experiences, clunky as they might seem now, were laying the groundwork for the massive online worlds we have today, like Fortnite, World of Warcraft, all of that.
For sure, this was the primordial soup.
But amidst all the console wars and the internet debates, there's this one little handheld that's kind of stealing the show.
Let me guess. Game Boy Advance.
You know it? Seriously, this magazine is obsessed, and for good reason.
It was revolutionary.
Right.
I mean, the GBA wasn't just a portable console, it was a technological leap, man. It proved you could have console-quality gaming on the go, and no wonder it became a cultural phenomenon.
And speaking of cultural phenomena, this issue is overflowing with hype for upcoming games, some that became instant classics, and others, well, not so much. I'm looking at you, Bloody Roar 3.
Some things are better left in the past.
But what really stands out, and GamePro was all over this, was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 for the GBA.
Oh man, what a game. I remember spending hours trying to master those combos.
It's a great example, like how developers were wrestling with the limitations of handhelds back then. I mean, the game was a technical marvel. Squeezing that much detail onto a GBA cartridge was no joke. But that fixed isometric viewpoint,
Yeah, not everyone was a fan.
it shows how even successful ports had to make compromises back then.
Definitely.
But it makes you appreciate how far handheld gaming has come, right?
Huge time.
We've come a long way from those tiny screens and pixelated graphics. Okay, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. This issue isn't just about the tech, it's about the games themselves. And let me tell you, this issue is a time capsule of gaming history in the making. From Final Fantasy to Tomb Raider, we're talking about some of the biggest names in gaming.
And it's a reminder that some franchises, they just have this incredible staying power.
Right.
While others, well, let's just say they peaked at the right time.
Harsh, but fair. But before we dive into the games themselves, there's another section in here that is pure gold, pure nostalgic gold.
Hit me with it.
The advertisements.
Oh man, the ads.
Talk about a blast from the past.
It's like stepping into a time warp.
Remember that iconic Game Boy Advance bumper?
How could I forget?
I practically begged my parents for one.
Me too.
And looking back, it's hilarious to think that, like, scratching our handhelds was a major concern.
Major.
It makes you wonder what future generations are going to find amusing about our tech obsessions today, right?
Well, absolutely. They're going to be like, you guys stressed out about what?
Right. You had to carry around a separate device for your music,
Exactly.
and you had to wait how long for a download.
Oh man, the future's going to be wild.
But you know what's fascinating about these ads is how they reflect not just the games, but the overall culture of the time, right? We've got everything from Mountain Dew to Slim Jims vying for gamers' attention.
Don't forget about the Surge and the Pizza Hut.
Oh, yeah. It was a simpler time.
Simpler times, my friend.
But it's a reminder that even back then, gaming was already becoming a major cultural force. And brands, they were starting to take notice.
Oh, yeah. And they were spending big bucks to get in on the action.
And let's not forget those wacky phone-in contests. I remember spending hours trying to decipher those Corn Nuts WrestleMania codes.
Yes, the struggle was real.
It's a far cry from today's, online giveaways and influencer marketing.
That's for sure.
But there's a certain charm to it, right? This
Yep.
direct line to gamers. No algorithms, no targeted ads, just pure, unadulterated marketing magic.
It was a simpler time, my friend.
A simpler time. But speaking of things that were simpler, this issue of GamePro wasn't just a magazine, it was a portal.
A portal to another world.
Exactly.
Heard it.
A world where cheat codes were king and SWAT Pro was the holy grail.
Oh, man, SWAT Pro. This, my friend, was the Google of cheat codes before Google even existed.
Oh, absolutely. This was pre-game at Hughes, pre-wikis.
Yeah.
This was it. Finding that one cheat code
Wow.
in GamePro, it was like striking gold.
It was pure magic. You'd scribble it down, you'd memorize it, you'd share it with your friends at school.
It was a badge of honor.
It really was. It fostered a sense of camaraderie, you know? You weren't just playing the game, you were part of this secret society sharing this insider knowledge.
Totally. And conquering those challenges together.
It's like alive.
And it's amazing to think that this little magazine, this tangible, hold-it-in-your-hands magazine, played such a big role in shaping the gaming landscape.
It really did. It was a different time.
But before we get too lost in nostalgia,
Okay.
there's one more fascinating aspect of this issue that we need to unpack, and it's a big one.
Lay it on me.
Hollywood's growing fascination with video game adaptations.
Oh, boy.
From Tomb Raider to Final Fantasy, this issue offers a glimpse into this pivotal moment in gaming history.
And what a moment it was. The hype, the skepticism, the hope that this time, just maybe, Hollywood wouldn't completely butcher our beloved games.
Yeah, the track record wasn't exactly stellar back then. For every Mortal Kombat, there was a Super Mario Bros. Haunting our dreams.
Don't remind me.
But with Tomb Raider about to hit theaters, GamePro seemed cautiously optimistic. So let's dive into that, shall we?
Oh.
Seriously, this issue is Tomb Raider overload. I mean, we've got interviews, behind-the-scenes photos. They even break down how they recreated Lara Croft's iconic look for the big screen.
No, it's interesting. They really wanted to do it right. They actually worked closely with Core Design, the game developers, to make sure they captured the essence of Tomb Raider, you know?
Yeah, and there's this whole thing about how Core Design was already planning to update Lara's look for the next generation of consoles. Can you imagine? Ditching the turquoise tank top, those iconic shorts.
It's wild to think about, right? But, I mean, it just shows you how, even back then, they knew that characters, franchises, they have to evolve to stay relevant.
It's so true, and it makes you wonder what they would have done with Lara if they'd had today's technology. But okay, back to the movie. So they were trying to stay true to the games, but they also decided to create a totally original story for the Tomb Raider movie, which honestly kind of feels like a risky move.
Right. I mean, talk about pressure. You've got these diehard fans who are already skeptical, and then you're like, oh, and we're not even going to give you the story you're expecting.
Right. Did they think they could actually improve on those classic Tomb Raider storylines?
It's a tough call, but it's interesting because it's a dilemma that video game adaptations still struggle with today. How do you please the core fans while also appealing to a wider audience? It's a balancing act, for sure.
Oh, totally. And speaking of adaptations, there's this sidebar in this issue called, more video game movies. And let me tell you, it is a wild ride. We're talking Final Fantasy, Doom, Crazy Taxi. They're even trying to make a Dragon's Lair movie.
Okay, Crazy Taxi. I kind of want to see that just for the sheer absurdity of it.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the world was ready for that level of chaos on the big screen.
Yeah.
But it really highlights this pivotal moment where Hollywood is realizing that video games are a potential gold mine.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Big time.
They wanted that piece of the gaming pie.
For sure, but they were also learning the hard way that adapting a game into a movie is so much more complicated than just hitting the copy and paste button.
For sure. But okay, so it's not all about the blockbusters in this issue. There are also reviews for a ton of other games. We're talking sports titles, quirky RPGs. Remember Conker's Bad Fur Day?
Oh, man. Conker. That game was something else.
To say the least.
Right. It pushed the boundaries of what was considered acceptable in a video game. I mean, it was hilarious. It was offensive.
It was definitely unique.
Totally. But it's a perfect example of the kind of creativity, that risk-taking that really defined this era in gaming.
Totally. And let's not forget, this was the golden age of cheat codes. This issue's SWAT Pro section. It's like a treasure trove.
It's crazy to think how much the gaming landscape has changed, right? I mean,
Yeah.
These days we've got online wikis, walkthroughs, everything's just a Google search away. But back then, Finding that perfect cheat code in GamePro, it felt like discovering a hidden level all on your
It
own.
was like you were in on a secret.
Right. And then, like, sharing those codes with your friends, it was a badge of honor, man.
Absolutely. You'd spend hours, like, trying different button combinations, hoping to unlock that secret character or that hidden ending.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
And it wasn't just about the cheats themselves, it was that sense of community. Like
Where-
we were all in this together.
It was a different kind of gaming experience for sure. And, it wasn't just about the cheats. SWA T-Pro also had strategy guides, tips and tricks.
Yeah.
It was like having this direct line to the game developers.
Right. They were giving you the inside scoop on how to beat those tough bosses.
Yes. How to conquer those levels.
It was amazing. It's a testament to the power of print media, even in the early days of the internet. GamePro wasn't just a magazine, it was a guidebook, a community forum, a source of endless entertainment for gamers of all ages.
It really was. And it's amazing how much information they packed into a single issue. But you know what else strikes me just flipping through these pages? It's the passion.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you can practically feel the excitement jumping off every single page.
The writers, the editors, the designers, they lived and breathed video games. And that enthusiasm, it was contagious, man. It's one of the things that made GamePro such a beloved and influential publication.
Totally. Okay, before we get too sentimental, there's one more thing we have to talk about: the future. Or at least what GamePro in 2001 thought the future of gaming would be. Remember those predictions sections?
Oh man, the predictions. Some of them were so far off base, it's almost comical.
I know, right?
But that's the beauty of it all, right? Like we get to look back and see what people were thinking, what they were hoping for.
They were particularly bullish on online gaming. Like, they dedicated a whole feature to the rise of broadband, how it was going to, revolutionize the way we play.
Little did they know, right?
Right. And the technology. They were hyping up these, chunky virtual reality headsets.
Oh man, those things were huge.
They look like they were straight out of a sci-fi movie. But it makes you wonder, what technology are we on the cusp of today that's going to seem just as dated in 20 years?
It's a trip, right?
It is.
It really makes you think about how far we've come and where we're going. And that's the beauty of technology and the creative spirit behind video games. It never stops evolving. But there is one thing that hasn't changed, and that's the sense of wonder, that excitement that comes with exploring new worlds and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And GamePro, man, they captured that perfectly.
They really did. Well, after that trip down memory lane, I think we need to shift gears a bit. We've talked a lot about the hype, the predictions, but what about the actual games? And more specifically, what about the rise of the Game Boy Advance and what it meant for the future of portable gaming? Flipping through these pages, it's impossible to ignore the Game Boy Advance. It's everywhere. Reviews, previews, that unforgettable bumper ad. You could tell this little handheld was about to make a big splash.
And it did. The GBA wasn't just a successor to the Game Boy Color, it was a statement. It proved that portable gaming could deliver a console-quality experience, and developers responded with some truly groundbreaking titles.
This issue gives a sneak peek at what's on the horizon: Sonic Advance, Super Mario Advance, even Mario Kart Super Circuit. Talk about a killer lineup.
It's a who's who of gaming icons, all making their way to a handheld console. It's no wonder the GBA became a cultural phenomenon, capturing the imaginations of a whole new generation of gamers.
And it wasn't just about the big names. This issue also highlights the sheer diversity of the GBA library. We're talking platformers, RPGs, even sports games. There was something for everyone.
It's a testament to the GBA's technical capabilities. It allowed developers to push the boundaries of what was possible on a handheld, and they didn't hold back.
And the games themselves. Some of them hold up surprisingly well, even by today's standards. I recently dusted off my old GBA to replay Advance Wars, and let me tell you, that game is still as addictive as ever.
Absolutely. Advance Wars is a classic example of how great gameplay can transcend time. But it wasn't just the gameplay that made the GBA so special. It was the entire package, the portability, the affordability, the sheer variety of games. It was the perfect console for a generation on the move.
And it paved the way for the handheld gaming revolution that followed. The DS, the PSP, even our smartphones today, they all owe a debt of gratitude to the little GBA that could.
It's remarkable how influential that little console turned out to be. But as fascinating as it is to reminisce about the past, what I find truly exciting is what this deep dive into GamePro tells us about the future of gaming.
Absolutely. So, what did GamePro get right? What predictions from 2001 actually came to pass? and what still seems like a distant dream.
Well, they were certainly on the mark about online gaming becoming the dominant force it is today. Remember all that skepticism surrounding broadband? Look at us now.
It's funny how quickly things change. They couldn't have predicted esports, though, or the rise of streaming platforms like Twitch.
Precisely. And that's the beauty of it all. Gaming is constantly evolving, pushing boundaries, defying expectations. Who knows what the next 20 years will bring?
I can't wait to find out. Maybe we'll be revisiting this very episode in 2044, reminiscing about the good old days of virtual reality and cloud gaming. Now, that's a deep dive I'd love to be a part of. But for now, let's savor this moment, this glimpse into a pivotal year in gaming history. And remember, the next time you fire up your favorite game, whether it's a retro classics or the latest blockbuster, take a moment to appreciate the journey, the technological innovations, the creative risks, and the passionate community that made it all possible.
Couldn't have said it better myself. A huge thank you to you, our listener, for joining us on this incredible journey back in time. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the fascinating world of gaming history.